Big injury news in the WNBA. Caitlin Clark is going to miss the next 2 weeks with a quad strain, at least the next 2 weeks. And if it were to be exactly 2 weeks, that would be 4 games that she is going to miss at minimum.
And I have to say that I did notice in the Liberty game, Caitlin Clark's shots were all very short. So it was showing that she wasn't like getting off, and she was having a difficult time making those threes, and a lot of explosiveness from those 3-point shots does come from your legs.
This is actually an injury that was separate from the quad tightness issue, as Caitlin Clark described it earlier in the preseason, that she dealt with before. So it's a little bit of an interesting situation given that it was the same leg, but the team is saying it is actually a new injury.
In a moment, the NBA's heyday ended abruptly. The biggest attraction in the league is Caitlin Clark. The novice is actually altering history. Time went down hard following a vicious foul. Incident left doctors and fans in disbelief. Extremely worried, the Fever referred to it as out for at least 2 weeks due to a quad injury. However, behind the scenes, the rumors are becoming louder. Rumors that Clark's wound could be far more grave than anyone is acknowledging. And insiders claim that several of the physicians that are currently treating her are requesting that the WNBA look into the officiating which brought about this moment. Indeed, healthcare providers are allegedly requesting that the league hold its referees accountable at last. For the careless strikes that Clark has been taking the entire season wasn't only awful. Fortunately, this could be the direct outcome of months of warning signs being disregarded, unrestrained physicality, and a framework that permitted the targeting of its biggest star. Was this a strange injury that occurred in another game? Or did Caitlin Clark's failure get set up by the league she was attempting to save? Because what we are now learning from ignored signs of a title and explosive rumors, wave of fan indignation might be the commencement of a comprehensive WNBA reckoning. In an instant, it occurred, but shock waves were sent across the whole sports industry during what should been a regular trip to the basket. Caitlin Clark was leveled rather than bumped. Grazed, she took a powerful blow that drove her flying to. Her legs were twisting on the floor. Uncomfortably, the crowd moved beneath her. Completely quiet, and then the alcohol began to. Bringing in replays revealed just what. Supporters were worried about a defender entering late, giving what many consider to be a filthy, bad whole-body high contact and nil. Clark's plan to play the ball stayed up later than normal, squirming as trainers hurried over, and it was right away evident that there was a problem, and while the referee blew the whistle because it wasn't enough. This wasn't the first time, but it's too late. Caitlin had experienced such blows, but it could have been the one who ultimately broke her down. In a matter of hours, the Fever was verified. With a left quadriceps injury, the worst, Clark was out. Injury and would be out for a minimum of 2 weeks. Possibly more, contingent on reassessment. Fans went crazy on the internet, not only because, despite the fact that their favorite player was injured, due to the presence of the warning indicators and no one took any action to prevent it, but was Clark injured, or was it simply poor luck? Playing with injury for a long time before this. Currently, there are rumors circulating, not from fans or trolls, but from those involved in the circumstance that Caitlin Clark's injury may be much more serious than, more severe than the WNBA is making it appear. Several sources have suggested that the medical professionals who examined Clark were extremely worried about the extent of the damage had previously performed on her quadriceps. Some people are even claiming that the last hit, if she had continued to play, the injury have intensified into a season, terminating or, worse, endangering one's career. But this is where it becomes even more startling. Based on these medical rumors, experts have privately pushed the WNBA will begin an official investigation against the presiding over Clark's matches, specifically the frequency of her permitted to make direct touch without. Let that sink in. Doctors are making bad calls, reportedly criticizing the referees now. If that's accurate, the league may not simply be battling an injury sustained by a player. They might be facing a full-blown scandal. Let's discuss the warning signs. Everyone disregarded the reality, which is this. The injury wasn't unexpected in fact that the indicators were flashing red for the league, the team, the weeks, and even the crowd all turned their heads away. Clark did not attend the preseason with the fever. First with what the squad referred to as left tightness in the quadriceps, the same leg that gave away during the most recent game. She was thrown back after taking a few days off into action for the entire minutes of full contact, complete anticipations, and throughout those initial. After a few games, she felt uneasy. She lacked explosiveness in her deep shot, began to fail at one point. She was even captured on camera on the bench, applying hot packs to her leg while a move that no healthy player makes in the game. Stephanie White, the mid-battle coach, later acknowledged that she had no idea when, after Clark was hurt, the team only discovered that something was gravely flawed after Caitlin herself expressed her opinions after the game. Clark had to inform them about that. Was in pain, but she was playing to hide it. Night after night, it takes hits, while acting as though she was all right since the pressure to perform, let's face it, was always higher, and this boosts. One significant query was Caitlin Clark, already hurt prior to that shady incident, even occurred, and we're going to go into how unprotected play and physical play might have caused her body to overreact. Some people refer to it as simply a component of the game, but has anyone been observing? This season, Caitlin Clark is aware of this. Wasn't an isolated incident. This has been, starting with her first A game. Clark has been the focus of a lot of defenders make contact and take her off the ball, give her a forceful delivery and bump her on screens. Fouls that are worse or appear to go unreported, unpunished each and every evening. She's confronting a degree of physicality that almost reckless, yet the referees silence, no ejections, no loud calls, genuine deterrent, while other celebrities in veterans with years of experience in the league obtain whistleblower protection for half the communication. But Clark is supposed to, whether she is a rookie or not, she has been handled as like she doesn't deserve to be fairly defended. This isn't just basketball, it's aiming for the type of play that undermines a body game after the game until something eventually gives. And now its supporters aren't foolish. They view the missed calls, the double standard, inconsistency, and with Clark serving as the league's spokesperson, people are beginning to inquire as to why the WNBA is permitting its brightest star to get abused every night and without doing anything about it. But it goes beyond the referees no longer as the whole. The league's business model is being Caitlin, let's not sugarcoat the test. Not only is Clark a rookie, but she's the reason behind the WNBA's prominence on prime time TV and arenas that are sold out coast to coast. She is the force behind the momentum of the league, and now that engine. Clark's games have halted. Broken attendance records for her jersey. Tickets to see her are flying off the racks. NBA-level live sales have been available. Prices, sponsors were in queue as soon as she was drafted, and Baltimore and other towns and Chicago really relocated their fever matches at larger locations only to manage the request, but within hours of her. All of it came with the injury announcement. Refund demands began to crash down. Team after squad that relied on Clark's exist now, gazing upon thousands of the Chicago Sky had relocated the vacant seats. Their encounter with the formidable United Center is now dealing with the humiliation of broadcasting a nationally broadcast match in a partially deserted arena. The executives are rushing in a panic. Broadcasters who operate behind closed doors are were anticipating a sharp decline in ratings. Advertisers that spent a lot of money on the games that Clark covered are reconsidering deals because the reality is straightforward. The WNBA's whole future was tied to one player, and they bet that she is currently sidelined. Caitlin Clark's house and never tried to keep her safe, but as another hurricane scuttles the commercial world, was developing an online one that disclosed something far more repulsive underneath the appear as soon as Caitlin Clark's. When the injury was made public, the internet exploded. And not how you would have hoped when it was actual. Another basketball fan was devastated. The WNBA fanbase's side demonstrated its real colors, and it was repulsive. Rather than worry about or encourage portions of social media was ablaze with joy. Tweets supporting her and posts making fun of Clark. Absence of whole threads devoted to making fun of a 23-year-old who recently received severely injured while playing the game, affections, and let's face it, this wasn't. Most of the random trolling originated from opposing fan bases, particularly those who share with organizations such as the Chicago Sky and Angel Reese, the same individuals who consistently, "We simply hate Caitlin, not the other way around." Her admirers, they were now publicly boasting. While she was away, you may peruse the tweets quoting the Indiana Fever's injury announcement and take a look for yourself. Snarky remarks, party emojis, and happy faces. Jokes about her pretending to be soft. There weren't just one or two poor attempts. Was floods of hateful remarks, and this is the most terrifying aspect of this conduct. Directly relates to how Clark has been handled during the season on the court. She has been permitted to be struck, shoved, and harassed each and every game, and now that it's obvious that some supporters are hurting, she earned it, so it's not just rivalry is a focused hatred campaign against the key participant in the failure of the NBA and league to intervene. It strengthened Clark rather than just hurting him. This poisoning, but it's not limited to the fans who denied her the quiet from the leadership has been even more vocal during rival fans burned down on social media. Delighted in Caitlin Clark's first injury, the WNBA voice was conspicuously lacking. Itself, no public endorsement, no declaration. No, from Commissioner Kathy Engelbert. Teams are warned not to crack down on the increasing violent aggression directed against them. Nothing, the brightest light, just silence. That says a lot, and it has been. All throughout the season, referees have allowed hard fouls go unpunished as things slip. When opponents grasp, they get away with it. Clark was pushed and slammed to the ground. And the inconsistency's worst aspect is glaring. Clark is called for a minor infraction. Contact occasionally for hardly breathing on opponents while defenders are permitted to pretend that it's street ball. Not only did the double standard it cost the WNBA Fever points, top draw, and admirers have observed whether they claim that this was Sabrina, Diana, or AA. Would the whistle continue to be quiet? Even the coach seems to know the solution. Stephanie White alluded to the more profound problem, acknowledging that she was unaware of how severe Clark's illness resulted from players. Like her, many conceal suffering in order to remain the court for the reason that when you're viewed as a target displaying vulnerability is not a choice that the league had at all. Opportunity to take over following the preseason injury, following the low-cost shots, following the viral videos showing Clark using his elbows without making a call, but they didn't. They continued to overlook it until when her body ultimately failed. They're observing the consequences of their own carelessness, but as the WNBA panics in order to control damage, what about the star of the Indiana Fever? Marginalized, they're up against a vicious duration of the games, and the figures without Clark and Caitlin Clark aren't attractive. Out the Indiana Fever appear to be abruptly a totally distinct squad and not in a Fortunately, her absence isn't only notable, the figures are terrible. Avoid lying to Clark on the court. Fever has a strong offensive rating. Without her, 107.5 drops to a terrible 82.2, which isn't a decrease. Not only does a free fall Clark score, but she makes her court space and floor vision, and the capacity to attract defenders create. Everyone around her is better now that the safety net has been removed, and the strain is on each and every player to step up quickly. Stephanie White, the head coach, is already attempting to adapt. She has discussed changing the focus of their offense. Translation: now let's move on to the remainder of the roster to demonstrate that they're not simply supporting figures in the Caitlin film. Aaliyah Boston was last seen by Clark. The Rookie of the Year for this year is currently the Boston's preferred choice had been thriving with Clark on pick and rolls. However, the group now intends to raise her, getting her back to that after touches. She was very good at the dominant low block style. Kelsey Mitchell will be attending college soon. Been the most reliable scorer for Indiana, away from Clark, and she now receives the strain of playmaking to more touches. Greater scrutiny and pressure on her. If she delivers, she might demonstrate that she's more than merely a shooter, but if she has trouble, Fever's offensive might come to a full standstill. Role players such as Sophie Lexi Hall, Cunningham, and Natasha, a veteran. Now, Howard was brought in for more detail. No, they are being flung into the fire, more concealed underneath Clark's celebrity. Either the season slips or it's time to deliver quickly, and the timetable isn't. Washington, are you doing them any favors? Chicago and Connecticut are all formidable opponents, all aiming for victories as the Fever to discover their identity without their. This is not merely a test of leadership. Talent is an identity test, and if they don't discover solutions quickly, might quickly spiral, but this isn't. This injury is only Indiana's crisis. Revealed about the WNBA overall could be more hazardous than Caitlin Clark's. A player was not just sidelined by an injury. Revealed the unsettling reality that the WNBA has attempted to conceal, that the whole league is based on one draw, one superstar, one narrative with a golden goose holding everything, and she's gone now. And one wound simply burst rather than leveraging Clark's progress to create a stronger. The WNBA staked everything on its foundation, on a single rookie to bear the burden of an. They didn't spread the word throughout the league spotlight. They didn't create several stars on which the house is able to stand. Unstable earth that is presently collapsing. But what was worse about this whole situation? Avoidable adequate rest following her. Better officiating during preseason strain. Discourage the persistent pursuit of a medical. Employees that are more proactive in identifying the warning indicators that they may have safeguarded. They didn't realize they were observing her. Ratings declined, arenas close, and an increasing number of irate supporters are requesting one harsh query. Did the WNBA simply ruin its best opportunity to mainstream by not defending the player who brought them there? Was more than simply a wound. It was a flashing, a siren blaring, and a red warning light. The locker is used by all league employees. Caitlin Clark's rooms and media booths are out, and the repercussions are enormous. However, let's not act as though this was some strange incident that resulted from. After weeks and months of disregard, the WNBA had a superstars of the generation fall into its lap, and they flung her instead of shielding her. They allowed defenders to expose her to the wolves. Take shots without facing any repercussions. They allow, without resistance, toxic fan bases continue to grow. When she was bruised, they said nothing. Harassed and assaulted while carrying the momentum of the league on her shoulders. And they are currently bearing the consequences of this. What occurs if a league doesn't acknowledge its own worth when it receives a ticket to the main stage but makes a mistake with the Chance by holding onto outdated routines and poor leadership as reported by the media, such as Clark saving the WNBA, yet if she is broken, nothing can be saved. The floor, and they must now locate. Discovered the hard way how this league appears, as though she weren't there, yet this gives. Supporters hope that Caitlin Clark hasn't finished this. Perhaps the break was the respite she needed. It will be her first opportunity to take a step back, examine the game from a new perspective, and recuperate appropriately, and upon her return, she will be more intelligent, stronger, and more. The Indiana fever is more hazardous than ever. Will be put to the test in the spotlight. Change, other players will emerge, and perhaps the WNBA will at last recognize the consequences of ignoring its stars. Let's hope that the following time talent from different generations enters the league, shields her as if the future relied on it, since it does drop and recover quickly. Leave a CC in the comments if you're supporting the return of Caitlin, and if you believe the WNBA needs to improve on things like button to increase the volume of the message. Turn on alerts and subscribe, because there is still more to this story.